Our story begins in India, the largest country in the world, closing in on almost 18% of the world's population, home to one of the seven wonders of the world, the Taj Mahal, along with many cultural contributions across the globe, one of them being chess. A game dating back to the 5th century, typically played between two people across the board or even in recent years online in a turn by turn fashion. With my love for the game and my programming background, I took it upon myself to recreate this game in Unity because, in my humble opinion, it's the best. If you're familiar with chess, you know that it's hard, very hard, and so was developing it. A typical chess game looks like this. One player takes the black pieces and the other the white, and then they begin an incredible battle of wits. Each player makes his move and passes the turn onto the other player. You'd think that I would have all of this figured out by now, but in my game, there's a slight hiccup. There's no one stopping you from making a move twice, or even thrice, even just winning the game all at once, like this. So let's dive in and try to figure out how to solve all these problems that we've just encountered. Right now, I only have one universal player which controls both the white pieces and the black pieces. So the first thing we need to do is create two players, one for the white and one for the black, and one more reference to tell the game which player's turn it is to move. Then I wanted to create a new function to handle all the logic for starting a new game of chess, which loads all the chess pieces and the chessboard onto the screen and creates two players, which we had just declared earlier. And then we can call this function inside the start function of my game manager, which handles all the logic of the game. To create the players, I have created a new function called create player. The create player function takes in the player reference as the parameter, and then inside the new game function we check which player's turn it is to move by notify player to move function, which just updates which player's turn it is to move. And inside the update function we make one small change. We only update the player whose turn it is to move. We still have a few more things to do. The players still have to figure out if they are clicking or selecting the pieces which are their own, meaning that the white player should only move the white pieces, the black player should only move the black pieces. To do this, we make a few changes to the player class. To know which piece the player has clicked on, the player will need a reference to the chessboard which contains all the information about the game. So we pass that in. Then we make sure that the player selects the right pieces of the right color using a small check color function which we have already declared in one of our earlier videos. And only then do we allow the player to select the piece. We follow that up by a make move function which takes in as a parameter the move which the player is going to make, which will help us later on when we are checking if a move is legal or not. But there's just one problem. We don't know what a move is. So first we create a new class called move and define a new structure. Inside the structure we have a few values. One is to store the actual value of the move, meaning on which square the piece currently is and on which square the piece is going to land on. To get these values from the value field of the move, we have two masks, the start mask and the target mask, each respectively for the starting square and the target square. These work by the bitwise OR operator, which give us the starting square index and the target square index. Next, I'll just define a few constructors for the move and a few getter functions which will give me values for the starting square, the target square, to check if a move is valid or not, to check if two moves when given A and B are the same move or not, and so on. Now we can finally go back to the player class and start fleshing it out with code. So the first thing we need to do is inside the update board function, we have to get the indices of the square, meaning the starting index of the square which is being selected and the target index for the square which is being targeted. We do that by a simple helper function in the board UI class, get square index. Then we create a new move using these two indices which we have just declared and pass it in to the make move function which we had just created a few moments earlier. Inside the make move function, all we have to do is invoke the move executed action which is at the top of the player class, and make a slight change into it. Earlier, we were declaring a move as an array of vector2 ints, and that is it for the player class. Now we can move back to the game manager, pass in the board reference to the player class when a new player is being created. Inside the board UI class, the move executed method expects an array of vector2 ints. Another thing to keep in mind is that all the functions in the board UI class expect files and indices for a square instead of the index. So we have to create another helper function which takes in the index of a square and throws out the files and ranks of a square in the form of a vector2 int. This is how we do that. And yay, all the bugs have been fixed, all the problems have been solved, is what I would like to say. Now the main crux of this video. We have to actually update the position in the chessboard class. The way we do that, we create a new make move function inside the chessboard class, which will change all the variables and update all the positions after each move is made. And this function, although may seem a little too much to take in at first, is quite simple. First, we get the index of the opponent's color. Then we check if a piece is being captured during the move, and if it is, then we get the reference of the piece. Then we get the information of the piece, what type it is, what color it is. Then we just have to make sure if the piece being moved is a king, then we have to update the position of the king, because the position of a king is stored in a different array. If it's not, we get the position of the piece from the piece lists array. We can create a helper function for that and then update the position inside the array. After that is done, we can update the position array inside the chessboard to the target piece and make sure that the starting square is set to 0, because there is no piece on that square anymore. It has moved from that square to the target square. Then all you have to do is update all the counters of the chessboard, that is the color to move, if it's white to move or not, the color to move index, and the opponent color index. We do have an error, and the error is inside the board UI class. So I messed up in the helper function to get the square indices. This is the right way to do it, and now everything should work perfectly. The game recognizes that white has made a move, and now only black is allowed to make a move, and so on. And now our game finally is playable for two different players instead of one player taking all the control. But that doesn't stop us from sneaking in a move like this, which we will see how to solve in the next video. So stay tuned.